That would be something.
Hey, what's going on out there, YouTube?
He's Southern, bro.
This is SEL 0320.
It's your boy Joe Johnson 030.
We represent JVS. We're back here for a brand new TV show review. There's going to be some spoilers involved in this episode review we're going to do, but of course it's for The Walking Dead. The name of this episode is Here's Not Here. Man, that's a good title. Considering the character Ethan and what he has said to Morgan. So this episode surrounds Morgan in its entirety, from start to the finish. It begins with Morgan talking to somebody that you don't know who he's talking to. If most of y'all can probably kind of guess, but he's basically said that you wanted all that I had. You wanted to know who I am and everything. Well, I'm going to give it to you, every single bit. And that's where the story goes off from that point. But you don't know what happened to Glenn. I'm going to say this off the gate. They don't bring up what happened to Glenn. They don't bring up what happens to Rick. Even though at the very last part of this episode, I think that I heard Rick's voice. We'll get into that a little bit later on. So what did we think about this episode? What did you think, Joe? And then I'll talk about kind of my perspective on it before we go into the spoiler-filled stuff and the dynamics of what happened.
Well, we talked about it last week, if they were to do an episode that doesn't have anything to do with Glenn, how upset we would be. I'm actually not upset at all watching this episode.
Yeah.
Because it touched on everything that I wanted to know about Morgan's character in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked it. I do want to know what happened with Glenn. I do want to know what's going to happen to Rick. But situations do not define the show. It's the characters and the payoff with those characters that define the show. Since the first episode, when Rick met up with him and Dwight, I was always like, okay, I can't wait to see Morgan again. I was like, once I saw Morgan again at the end of last season, I was like, they're going to kill him off really quick. But this episode gave me the opportunity to see what happened after Rick and them regrouped with him around the third or fourth season, what he became after that point, in which we get to see that Morgan lost himself. He lost his ever-loving mind. One of the ways I guess I can best describe him is he had said that, and he was talking to a character named Easton, which we'll talk about his character a little bit later, that anything that was around him, whether it was dead, whether it was alive, he killed it. And the character Easton asked him, why'd you do that? He's like, this is the reason why I'm still here. I'm still alive. And that plays on a little bit later on into the story arc, but he was lost, man. Like, he was so far gone that he was going and just killing anything that he saw and burning it. Killing everything he saw and burning it. It was like, I feel for Michonne, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought about Michonne's character when she was kind of going through after what happened with her. But, this dude was just gone. Like, he was so far gone, he was not only talking to himself, but he was trying to recount his madness, his grief. He was dwelling in it in such a way that it was unraveling in front of him. And I had to commend Lenny James for his acting ability in this episode, because it was like the whole first 30-40 minutes was literally just us watching him probing his own mind. And we get to witness it, because there was one scene, remember when he was in the woods and he had just, I don't know if he had killed somebody or not yet, but he was in front of this like meadow. It was like regular flowers, and you could tell he was like enjoying the beauty of it. And all of a sudden he just got unraveled into his own madness all over again. And when it happens, like, it's like the blurring of the screen kind of happens, and it's really interesting, really compelling to actually watch. But what were your thoughts on his metamorphosis that you saw? Because you can talk about the last portion when he meets up with Easton if you want to.
One thing I thought that was really interesting was after he meets up with Easton, because we find out like Easton, he this isn't his first rodeo. Like, his job while like in the real world before the fallout was basically he was like he dealt with like inmates who were pretty much criminals who did like very evil acts, unspeakable acts, he would say. So he would work with like rehabilitating criminals. or whatever. So, but at this point, like when I first like figure out this bit of information about his character, like okay, this guy's basically trying to like kind of like want to work with Morgan to try to rehabilitate him, but he says something that's key that makes you think like, okay, that's kind of foreshadowing. That's like, okay, like I think he's got some history, because when he talks to him, he was like, he's talking about doors. He's like, you don't want to open the door, you want to go through the door. Basically, he was pretty describing Morgan's psychological pattern, his PTSD to a T. Mm-hmm. So much so that I'm like, there's no way for him to know this if he hasn't been through it himself.
Exactly.
The way he was describing it to Morgan, and I was like, so you don't really find out what actually happens or Ethan's past to like later on in the episode or towards the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was really cool, and it's a great episode of just like redemption and just like finding peace.
Yeah. And
you see like these two characters like really bond. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah. I mean, it to me,
good character development.
John Carroll Lynch, who plays the role of Easton, he, to me, is the embodiment of the most gracious and peaceful and all-around good guy that I've seen in a long time from a TV show. Like, I've seen movies where people like are just so selfless that it's like untaming, but this guy, the way that he goes off and puts his life on the line for one. From the point that Morgan even gets there, Morgan is so gone that he tells him, he's like, look, I'm going to kill you. Like, either one, I'm going to kill you or I'm begging you. Morgan, like, Lenny James, like, he does acting so well. He was like, kill me. I was like, this is the marks of a person that's gone, and it's to a T. And, but yet, Eastman, he decides to still stick with this man. Like, there was a point where he basically told him, he was like, you got me caged up in here, XYZ, like, why don't you kill me? He's feeding him, he's doing all these different things. All of a sudden, Eastman tells him, he's like, look, you can leave anytime you want. Because Morgan had basically gotten like a zipper, and he had unfiled it and sharpened it to the point that he was about to break out of the bars outside the door. And he basically told him, he's like, look, you can leave anytime you want to. So he opens up the cage, and like, sure enough, Morgan attacks him because that's all he knows.
But, I mean, the thing crazy was like, it was never locked. Like
that's what I was trying to get to.
Locked, bro. Like, that's crazy to me. And that dude can handle himself. Like, Issa can handle himself like real.
Well, I mean, that's the whole part about the whole perspective of it. His martial arts form is contingent upon his need to maintain peace and stability and make things work, you know what I'm saying? And not just make things work, but even if somebody is against him, like, he's doing the right thing. And I mean, he shows this form to Morgan later on, but in the middle of that situation, he basically told him that he was like the door was always open, basically, and he just didn't know. And it was so key to me, if I had to go on a symbolic level, that Morgan said to him later on, he was like, because the goat had gotten out, basically, and he had said, well, man, I guess the goat figured out how to get out. And Morgan had said that regardless of that, like, I didn't figure it out, you had to tell me. And part of that is to me, it's a metaphor of where his mindset was, how caged up he really was, that he didn't know that there was a way out. And for him to be able to know, it took a man like Eastman to do that. And Eastman puts his life on the line because basically they go to this point where the pit, where Morgan had kind of been lost in his madness, and they decided to go and practice like their forms and stuff like that. And Morgan told him, like, this is not the place to do this. And sure enough, there was a point in this episode where Morgan basically killed what he thinks to be a dad and his son. Took a thing straight to the guy's neck and then choked the son out at the bottom. And sure enough, that walker of that son comes back to haunt him, and he looks at it, he's frozen all over again. And Eastman moves in front of him and takes the bite. And I was like, this selfless man, dude. Like, I was like, I didn't want to cry. It wasn't a feeling like of sadness. It was like Joe said, this is a episode of redemption. This is an episode of showing the path that this man went on. And it was done and executed beautifully. A lot of people are going to be upset because all they want to know was what happened to Glenn. There's going to be a lot of people that's be like, well, there was no real action in this, and there was like nothing to go on. Like, it's not about that. It's about the characters. There's been previous seasons where we've had nothing but just Beth and like somebody else, or we've had just Rick on his own. So it's not about necessarily everybody as a group. It's what these characters mean to each other in this given world individually as well. And so I really like this episode. I gave it actually a 10. I know people are going to be giving me flack for that, but I give it a 10 out of 10. Like, I thought this was a really good buffer in between. What did you give it as far as a rating is concerned, just for the episode?
I thought it was good. I think I'll give it a 10 as well.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. The end, though, is really key because at the end of the episode, you find out that who Morgan was talking to was one of the wolves. And it's the wolf that specifically met him in the woods before, that was stuck in the house, that tried to kill him again. Morgan didn't kill him. He left him there, and Morgan was telling him this whole entire story, but basically the wolf said, what you described is, in my opinion, he was saying to him that there was a person that Eason had met in the jail cell that tried to reform him, but the man lashed out on him, tried to kill him, was unsuccessful, so he decided later on to get out, and he killed his wife and his daughter. And what Eason ended up doing later on is he lured him to the location, killed him, XYZ, but he understood the death and the evil that was in the man's eyes. And I don't think that Morgan gets it, but I think the wolf gets it. He's trying to tell Morgan, like, look, eventually I'm going to have to kill you and everybody else that I see. And regardless, it looks like he's cut, so it looks like a walker got to him. So, this is not good. This is not good. This is a great redemption story. This is a great perspective to see where this man has come from, but in his own maintaining of his civility and his soul, he's going to deliberately put people in danger. Like, this whole situation now is going to put everybody in danger. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that somebody's going to be a casualty from it. I can just tell you that much. Got anything else to add, Joe? Nah. I guess we'll wait till next episode. We're going to keep looking at The Talking Dead real quick. Thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed our review for this episode of The Walking Dead. And yeah, Morgan or Lenny James, great job. John Carl Lynch, great job. Writers, I swear there were times where we were looking at Morgan, I was like, his hair is changing. I was like, how long did they take to shoot this? Like, what if they went per each season, they shot small scenes and added it all into one? I don't know how they did it, but I'm going to watch The Talking Dead to see how they did.
Yeah, he mentioned that on The Talking Dead they didn't shoot it in sequence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was saying that before. Well, it was called like the first intro.
Wow.
But yeah, I could have sworn I seen him do with the edge up.
Yeah.
I was like, how you gonna have an edge up?
I don't know, man. But alright, y'all. Thanks everybody for watching. Peace. Till next time.